Welcome. Hello. It's time for Blocktalk. We are on Bitcoin block 424466. Where has the block height gone, guys? We're coming along here. It's going to be the next halving before you even know it. So it's going to be July 7th of 2020. Unless we get a bunch of these miners on the network. Or I'm going to be blenders with mining chips in it. Sorry about the noise. But we got some awesome sponsors to mention first before we start the show. First off, we have Altcoins. They are a currency that's deploying locally in Seville. They have over 4,500 users already. They're actually working in Vietnam and in China as well. They're kind of just trying to help everyone really with the security and the participation and just a lot of the technical struggles that the average person has with cryptocurrency to make sure they're all ready to be their own bank. So and they're also doing some cool events like as you see on the screen here, we have the Duro bike race, which they're sponsoring on September 1 to 4. So I don't know if you've seen the event at the track or at the Olympics. Like that's nothing compared to this. These guys actually have to carry their bikes through rivers and stuff. It's going to be pretty crazy. Then we have our next sponsor, which I guess is going to be Steemit, because within 5 minutes of posting this, I had $600 on the post. So clearly, you guys want to hear from Tone again. So yeah, well, big shout out to Steem, because you guys have a pretty active community, and I like posting my show there, regardless if it gets uploaded or not. And we got some really good questions here that I'll definitely bring along onto the show. Follow up to that interview that Blake did with the debate that Blake did with Tone. And as usual, I got the chat going here if anyone has any questions while we're going live. So without further ado, let's hi, I'm Alex. I'm chilling here at my nice warm coffee shop with the shake and stuff. But we got out in the wilderness, we have Tone Vays, who I'm not sure what you're doing out there, Tone. You said you're chilling at your trailer?
Oh man, yeah, I'm just taking a break from the busy world of New York City, even though I spend most of the show traveling. But hey, this is more fun. You know what? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna really chill out.
Yeah, you should almost have a hammock or something there.
I know. I should know. I have a hammock, but it's not anywhere near the fire because a hammock requires tools.
Oh yeah.
There you go. Let's do this.
I love it. Great atmosphere for the show. Real.
Let's do a. We're gonna do a real fireside chat here.
Oh, there'll be a fire brewing, I'm sure, by the end of the show. We'll see. I got some tough questions for you, but I don't know. Just tell me a little bit about yourself. Even your name, Tone Vays. Is that Greek or Italian?
It's neither, actually. I'm I'm Russian originally, but Tone Vays is a pseudonym. It was probably one of the smartest things I did when I joined the Bitcoin space. And the reason that happened was because I was still working on Wall Street, and I was kind of critical of what the banks were doing. So I didn't want to, I guess I didn't immediately start being a content creator and a voice in Bitcoin. I mean, I was around, I had Bitcoin for a little while, and eventually I said, you know what, I got shit to say. So I started saying it, but I didn't want to say it under the name that my bosses can Google.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So because of that, I started my alias Tone Vays, and it kind of stuck. So now that's how everybody knows me.
That's a very interesting story. Yeah, I gotta say, I didn't really care about, hiding my identity, because I figured the worst that's gonna happen is, I work on my parents' farm, so I'm not really too concerned with the reputation. But I did have someone actually call one of my old works to say, hey, do you know this Alex Strick guy? Yeah, he's trying to sell everyone on Bitcoin. Oh yeah, he did that a lot in the office too. So they really not hurting my reputation by doing so. But it's interesting development. I definitely didn't know that. So I guess
but you see, well, what happens with me is just I mean, especially back then, I started doing this in early 2014, and I've been involved in Bitcoin since like 2013. And I mean, we don't know if Bitcoin is going to work out or not. So in case Bitcoin doesn't work out and I have to go back to look for a job, since I've been unemployed for like a year, if I go back to look for a job, I don't want an employer to go my name and then see all of this, right? Because the name that's going to be on the application when I go to Wall Street is not going to be Tone Vays.
So what were you doing on Wall Street then?
I was doing risk analysis. We used to build risk models. I started out doing that at Bear Stearns, and then when they collapsed, I moved on to JP Morgan. Then they sold our unit to MSCI, and then a bunch of us quit because of a bad merger, went to another company. So I was always doing the same thing, but my passion has always been on the trade side of the equation. So now that I quit my job, I travel, speak at Bitcoin conferences, and I trade financial markets, which is something I always wanted to do.
Yeah, that's definitely one comment I got on the show. Was a lot of people really like your Bitcoin price analysis, and we always end the show with
I haven't.
Bitcoin price predictions. So we'll definitely get deep into that.
We did. We're not doing that show anymore. I haven't done those in a while. I've been meaning to start my own podcast for that, but I just busy. I've never hit the record button. I'm on so many podcasts all the time. I've never actually hit the record button myself.
Yeah, I gotta say you're even from like I saw the debate and I haven't really kept up on you, so forgive me if you stated your opinion has changed on something I asked you since the debate. But yeah, like you say, you're a busy guy, so yeah, you're definitely talking a lot within the space. You're probably one of the most vocal Bitcoin maximalists, I must say. If you want to call yourself that, would you call yourself a Bitcoin maximalist?
I guess I have to, right? Because everybody else is. It doesn't really matter what you call yourself. It's how you're perceived in the space. And look, if people want to call me Bitcoin maximalist, I'm not going to fight it. I'll embrace it and I'll run with it.
Well, I almost thought it was a made-up word until I actually Googled it. And
I can tell you the history of that word.
Sure, yeah, why not?
It's really, really quick. So what happened was there was a Skype group chat called the Counterparty Chit Chat, and it was the Krista Rose and Jonsef. They're big in that chat, and they got into this big discussion with Vitalik and over Bitcoin when they were telling Vitalik he doesn't know what he's doing, and then Vitalik went ahead and wrote an article coining the term Bitcoin maximalist to really describe Krista Rose and Jonsef. And I guess I'm in a similar boat with those guys and a few other people. And now that I've been so vocal on many different podcasts, I guess people are calling me the Bitcoin maximalist, but I think there are bigger Bitcoin maximalists than me out there.
Oh yeah, I definitely interviewed a couple on the show. I think Paul Stork might be one of the more notable ones.
Yeah, I just saw Paul Stork at the American Banker Conference.
Yeah, and actually, when I was watching Scaling Bitcoins, that conference in China had like those 9 guys representing like almost all the hash rate in the Bitcoin network on the stage. I remember it went on like intermission or something, and I could see you sitting next to the aisle, just kind of looking around, all confused of what was going on, I guess. But it's cool that you.
Yeah, no. I have such interesting stories about that. A lot of interesting things happen at that event. I almost got kicked out and banned from. But anyway, we can talk about that another time.
Okay. Well, what did you do? I guess you were a writer for Brave New Coin and Coin Telegraph as well.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
You were a writer for Coin Telegraph and Brave New Coin as well.
And Brave New Coin. Hold on 1 second. I gotta deal with some kids. Yeah, what's up? Okay, keep me posted on who's winning. All right, cool. All right, we're set. Yeah, so I started out writing for Coin Telegraph, and I started a series called Bitcoin Price Analysis. And I really, really like doing that because I used to love their pictures. I used to just tell them how to draw me, and they would draw me in all those pictures. on that series of Bitcoin price analysis. And after that, I moved on to write analysis of Brave New Coin. It was a paid newsletter that didn't really catch on. And it didn't catch on because, you know, everyone in the Bitcoin space is pretty much broke, other than the early adopters, which unfortunately I wasn't one of. And I also helped Brave New Coin build some financial products. If you go to Brave New Coin website, you'll see the BLX liquid index. I helped them design the formula that is being used for that index. I used to speak under that title, but now that I'm becoming so opinionated and so controversial, I now speak under my own brand, which is Liberty Life Trail. So anything I say, it has completely nothing to do with Brave New Coin.
Okay, sorry, kind of just a bit there, but it was libertylifetrail.com. It's the website.
Yeah, so that's my personal. Yeah. That's my personal website. I've been a little busy to posting new content on it, but I'm going to put it all together over the next few weeks, all my recent shows, and I'm going to start maybe writing new analysis. And, you know, I've been meaning to write these articles. Like, you know, my views on Steemit. I was going to put it all together into an article explaining why Steemit is just bad for the ecosystem. I was also going to do a similar thing about Ethereum. So, I mean, I have good content. It's just, you know, it takes time to put it all together.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I like doing, like, I've tried to write more, but other than, you know, the Steemit posts, I mostly just do videos because they're that much easier. But I think, yeah, you have some very interesting opinions on Steemit, and I find it very interesting that you say it's just bad for the community overall. I would kind of wager that if you would, you know, the newest people owning Bitcoin, like let's just throw out a number, it's like the majority of them are the majority of new holders of Bitcoin probably got it from selling their Steem that they got through posting on Steem. Wouldn't you say that's probably a correct statement? Like, there's a lot of new Bitcoiners out there because of Steemit?
Perhaps. Perhaps at first, but that's not how it's going to end. Because people are gonna think that they're getting so rich on the Steemit that is being invested for 2 years, and what they're gonna end up doing. I mean, look, have you ever traded? Have you ever gambled? One or the other? They're similar but different.
Oh, I've done both. Yeah.
You've done both, right? So you understand the trader gambler's mentality.
Yeah, I think so.
Right. So the way it works is you put money in a gambling account, and you will keep gambling until you lose it all. Am I in the ballpark there? And then when you lose it all, you're gonna wait a little bit, and then you're gonna fund the account again.
Yeah, well, but where I don't really view, you know, Steem as an investment, because it's more just kind of like a game token. Like, it's meant to just incentivize the entire site. If you're putting your life savings into Steem, like, not an investor, or at least not a skilled one. Let's put it that way.
No, you're not. But see, what's going to happen is, you're talking about the very few people. I mean, people that have been listening to me, people that have been listening to a few other people, or people that have been in the space long enough to realize that the moment they can withdraw their Steem for Bitcoin, they will. But those people are few and far between. I mean, granted, the people that you talk to are doing this, right? The smart people are immediately cashing their Steem out for Bitcoins. But the majority of the people will not do that. And because of the gambler's mentality. Because if they lock up their Steem for 2 years, it doubles every year, okay? It doubles every year. What they don't realize is that it's doubling for the early adopters way more than it's doubling for them. But Steem doubles every year. So the gambler's mentality is not gonna have them cash anything out to Bitcoin. They're gonna keep doubling down until the system implodes, because the system is unsustainable.
Yeah, well, like, you look at it, there's, what is it? I think 90% of the Steem is powered up because that's how it's given to the majority of the people who actually, like, earn it through the site. I'm trying to understand who's actually going out there and dropping $5,000 on Steem and then powering it up. Like right now I have a Steem account worth about, it's like $10,000 at its highest. And I was just like, oh, then that's cool. Let's see what kind of power I got on the site. Like, what can I really do? And I'm like, okay, I have cents. Well, that's it. Like, that doesn't really seem like a lot of impact. The most I really realized I can do with it, if I find in the comments, majority of the comments are usually fairly low. I can boost my comment all the way up to the top. I can put other people down. So it works good, I guess, with like the low powered posts. But beyond that, like, I can't see anyone paying $10,000 for that. And then when I was first like learning about Steem, and I interviewed Ned and Dan, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. You know, like an advertiser would probably buy a lot of Steem so they can upvote their own posts. But the mechanics just aren't in place for that. Like, they would have to have $1 million account before they could really even like drop something onto the front page. Like Ned's account is worth, I think, several $1 million, and when I posted the show link, within like 5 minutes, Ned had uploaded it, and it was at like $600. So a couple other whales maybe jumped on it
Well,
too.
okay. So I'm going to speculate a little bit. I highly doubt that Ned and Dan have only one account. I highly doubt that. Maybe they do, but I don't believe that they do. But that's speculation. I have absolutely no evidence. So if your account is $10,000 and all you have is 10 cents worth of voting power, think about what some of the guys that have thousands of dollars worth of voting power, how big their accounts are. And I have a tweet, somebody wrote an excellent article that said that 46 people control 58% of all the power on Steem. And like 215 people control 80% of Steem. So out of all the Steem that's created every single day, 80% of it is going to 215 people. Okay? And you're right. I don't know who's buying the Steem, but people are buying it. People are buying the Steem power. They're buying into it. Now, one suspicion is that those insiders that have become very, very rich, they're the ones that are actually buying that Steem power back in order to keep the float going. Because another thing that people need to realize is like at least 90%, if not 95%, of all Steem between all three tokens is locked up in Steem power. So that means only 5% of the value of Steem is being actively traded. When only 5% of your token is actively traded, that is a very restricted selling pressure, and it artificially inflates the price. And
well, it's also not representative.
Right. And once you get a price, that price is applied to all Steem, not the 5% that is liquid. And because it applies to all of the Steem, it makes it look like the third highest market cap of all the coins. And I don't think that is right.
Oh yeah, market cap is a really terrible measure of value, I think, in the space. Even in the stock market, it can sometimes be a bad measure of value. But you said there's three currencies. Now I might disagree with you and say that Steem Power isn't a separate currency. Okay, so like you're familiar with proof of stake currencies, how when you're staking, when you hash a block, there's a certain amount of time that your currency is unspendable, whether it's like a half hour or, you know, in this case, it started when they first launched the site, it was a week. It was unspendable for a week until you powered it down. So Steem Power is basically just staking Steem, right? And that's maybe where you're seeing a big flaw in this. There's way too much Steem being staked. So like that makes it super inflationary. And it's inflationary, yeah, for the guys who got in really early, which is kind of a problem with a lot of proof of stake currencies. But there are benefits to, I guess, proof of stake. Yeah. Well, okay. So this is an argument that I think you really should know, or you should understand, because when you didn't mention it during the debate, I felt it was kind of I was frustrated. So I'm like, there's more going on here. Like you're making arguments. Oh, what happens if Polo goes away? Then there's nowhere to dump your Steem, so therefore it's bad. Well, that was kind of a really weak argument.
I agree that is a weak argument, but it's a realistic one.
Well, like there's other markets, right?
It applies to all the altcoins.
Oh, yeah.
There'll be, it's not just Steem. It applies to all the altcoins.
Well, in a way, it can also apply to Bitcoin too, right?
No, you don't see Steem. Local Bitcoins is the most important website to Bitcoin. Bitfinex, BTCE, Bitstamp, they can all disappear on the same day, and Bitcoin will have a rough month or two, but after that, it will be just fine.
Yeah, well, and I think the argument I would use too is like, okay, well, Steem's not only on Poloniex, it's also on like Bittrex, which has never been hacked, and then it's also on a decentralized exchange, on the BitShares exchange. So there are means for things to be traded within the digital universe. But yeah, I think the local Bitcoins argument is really good. So what I really wanted to highlight, okay, so when I interviewed Ned and Dan, this was just before Steemit had gone 10x, but the metric that was there, it wasn't 2 years to power down, it was 1 week. So you could power down, and after a week you got everything. So right after the show ended, like 2 days later, that's when the price skyrocketed. And then I think it was like 3 days later was about the timeline. Then the website went down. Well, you have like 90% of the funds that are staking, that have voting power on how the blockchain runs, are in a web wallet that now just went down. And then when the site came back up, now you have a new metric in place for Steem, which is now it's a two-year power down. So maybe they saw a bunch of guys who had accounts worth several $100,000 were powering down. Maybe they had powered down before even Blocktalk. And maybe some of them even got out, maybe they didn't, but they basically had full voting power. So I think the argument you should be making here is, okay, it's not that it's not a blockchain, it's that this is a highly centralized system, has a lot of training wheels on it, which is probably good in a way, but it is very centralized. And you do highlight a point, like the early adopters, they could have a lot of Steem that's liquid right now, and we don't really have that same opportunity anymore because they've changed the rules, right?
Yeah, Alex, actually, I didn't know that. Right? I can't make that argument because I had no idea.
Yeah, so now you know.
Now I know, and this is just every day, I see and I hear more and more stuff about Steem that just makes it even scammier and scammier left and right. So this also means that either they rewrote the white paper, or they released the white paper after your interview with them, which is the worst part, because that means that the white paper came out or was altered after the proof of work part had already been completed. They had proof of work for the first 3 or 4, 300,000 blocks or something like that, but their blocks are every 3 seconds. So I think their proof of work maybe lasted a month at most, and nobody knew about Steem back during the proof of work days, except probably their friends. So that this is why we have between 40 and 200 people owning all the Steem, because once proof of work was over, that's when they go public with it. They either alter the white paper or they release the white paper after 80-90% of all the Steem is already there, and now it's going to proof of stake. I mean, it's just like scam on top of scam on top of scam. It's absolutely terrible. And then what they're doing now is they're trying to get these high-profile people like Jeff Berwick, like some Playboy model, like anybody else with a lot of followers. They try to get them on Steem. The people, the insiders with the heavyweight accounts, they upvote the hell out of those posts. They make sure Jeff Berwick makes $14,000-15,000 in the first 12 hours, and now Berwick is sold. And Berwick is, I know Berwick. I speak at his conference every year, and he's all sold on Steem because he doesn't realize that they're playing him. They're giving him money just so he promotes it more, to get more people in, and just to keep it going. Just like they had to change from a week to 2 years to lock up that Steam power because they knew it was about to implode.
Yeah, well, and like their interest is trying to create, I think, something more long-term and sustainable. So it's not like I don't think they had necessarily nefarious actions. Their thinking was like, we want to make this last.
I don't think so. No, I honestly don't think so. I think it's all about them becoming rich. I don't think they care. I honestly don't think they care. And look, content isn't worth this much. I'm sorry. Our content is mostly worthless. There's like maybe, I mean, people always, I remember this even back like 20 years ago when I was, or maybe I'm not that old, like 15 years ago when I was in college. People were like, when baseball players just started getting their multi-million-dollar contracts, which are still going up, and then a professor goes, so when Alex Rodriguez got like a quarter of a $1 billion contract, people were like going nuts. And I remember a professor going, hey, so who thinks it's fair that Alex Rodriguez is making $250 million a year? And, you know, we're at a liberal college. We're all learning socialism. You kind of have to grow out of it. And everyone is like raises their hand that thinks it's unfair that Alex Rodriguez is making $250 million over 10 years. And the professor goes like this: how many of you can hit a 100-mile-per-hour fastball out of the ballpark, right? So it's like you have a special skill. There's maybe 1,000 people in the world that can do it. And these 1,000 people earn a lot of money. It's the same thing in most professions. There's maybe 1,000 people in the world that deserve $14,000 for a video or for an article. And guess what? I don't think any of those people are in the Bitcoin community. No offense to all of us.
So yeah, I think I agree with you there. The price definitely needs to stabilize, probably a bit lower to be more sustainable. And maybe that comes with more of a lull in new users coming in. But like my show, I get sponsors for it. So like I would say that people do value the time I put into this. Like when people hear that I'm going to have on, like, you know, I don't know, something relevant to their business, they feel they should pay to have me talk about something for them at the beginning of the show. So there is value in content, but I think you hit the nail on the head there saying it's definitely not worth 14 grand, or like even this show had $600 within 5 minutes. Well, you never even confirmed. You hadn't even retweeted me at that point. So it's like, how do they even know that that's true? So it's kind of funny. I don't know. My post already paid out, so I guess those people can't take their money back now. Talking bad about Steam, but I think there's still a lot of questions for Ned and Dan to answer, and I'm sure they're going to watch this. So I would love to have those two on again, because I have a lot more, I think, critical questions for them. And even after we had them on the first time, a couple of the more, I won't call them maximalists, I'll probably call them Bitcoin purists. They thought that the byproduct of this, or the what this system is producing, is propaganda, and it's just a circle jerk for Steam. And if you look at majority of the posts, yeah, it is that way, but I think it's still better than crypto Reddit, bar none, like way better. So in that way, it does have some value, but perhaps it's overvalued. And I think maybe where some of the value maybe comes from is, okay, so we talked about, you mentioned mining before. I know someone who mined in the early proof of work phase, only for like 3 days before it ended. He got like 25 Steam, and he said it was a real bitch to get the chain synced up again like 4 weeks later when it started pumping, because it is a very fast chain and it's very resource heavy now. Like, this is basically a really inefficient server, but it does run transparently and decentralized. So maybe in that way it is better than Reddit. Like Reddit goes down like every day, it seems.
I know, but I don't understand what is decentralized about the system. I just don't. I don't understand what's decentralized about it. What part? Because it's a proof of stake that gets you to Steam. Their content server sure as hell isn't decentralized, and no one still answered my question, which is very inappropriate, but it's a real question. If someone posts a video or an article related to something very inappropriate, either drug use or pornography, or you know which word I'm heading to next, what happens? What happens to that server? What happens to that content?
Well, and I asked Ned and Dan about that. I'm like, oh, you guys control Steemit.com. Are you going to censor anything? Oh, well, if we do censor it, it's going to be in a very transparent way. Like we would say, yes, we're taking down this post, or we're blocking this post because of this.
Right. Look, and I don't have a problem with them blocking the post. I just want my question answered. What part is decentralized? Because clearly not the content, right? So what part is actually decentralized?
The server in which the content is hosted on. So if I wanted to, I could make my own website, call it Cleveland Steamer or something, and I could have whatever posts I want come from the blockchain and post it there. And you know what? Maybe I'll do what Ned did, and I'll put a banner out on the top, which is always my post, because that's what he did during the hack. It's like, oh yeah, we have a hack update. Here it is, banner out on the top, and then it goes to his thing. Well, don't you think if the hack news was important, it would be on the front page anyways? Like everyone would know about it. So I found that kind of like unfair in a way. I was like, come on, Ned, you're putting your ad on the top of the page, like, or you're putting your post on the top of the page. Now everyone's gonna upvote you because it's right there. So I think the reason it's decentralized is because I can write an app for my phone, and it pulls all the same data. And you know what? Maybe it'd be more successful than Steemit.com. But I think where they're kind of doing things right is, well, not maybe right, but they're doing things in a way that it's easy for new users. Is that it's like Facebook easy. Like you sign up, you get your hash password, and you connect your Facebook account to it, and all your funds are stored in a web wallet. Well, I'm surprised they don't have it to the point where it's like, why am I not using Steemit on my own client? Or they said in the interview they were going to have a client-side version of the website soon, so you could just run it offline, and with the copy of the blockchain and stuff like that. So it is using a blockchain. It is decentralized, but Steemit.com is highly centralized, and right now it has 85–90% of all the funds on it. So the economics are rather centralized too. Like I've seen it in some projects in crowdfund where the web wallet was a tool they used to manipulate the market. So I agree with you on some points, Tone, but I think saying it's not a blockchain, that's way over the top, dude. You're talking craziness there.
I don't think so. I don't think so, because it's not proof of work. It's not proof of work. To me, a blockchain is proof of work. Proof of stake is nothing. Proof of stake is nothing. Look, they have 3-second blocks. They don't need blocks at all. The only reason why they have 3-second blocks is so that they can call it a blockchain, just because they're blocks, but they're completely unnecessary. Proof of stake systems do not need blocks. They also don't need anything revolutionary that Satoshi created. Calling Steemit a blockchain is equivalent to saying Satoshi did not invent the blockchain.
Well, okay, so does a proof of stake blockchain have a hash that references a previous block?
And the blocks aren't necessary in a stake system. They're just not. There's no reason for blocks. The reason to have blocks in a proof of stake system is so that it's clickbait of calling it a blockchain.
But there's a lot of proof of stake chains out there that are viable, don't you think?
They don't need blocks.
But that's not, if they didn't have a blockchain, then they wouldn't be solving the Byzantine generals problem.
But they're not solving the Byzantine general problem with a proof of stake system.
How so?
It's proof of stake system. There's nothing revolutionary there. You need proof of work. This is my favorite argument. We've had proof of stake for thousands of years. The richest person in your village was usually the king of your village, because he has the most money and the most at stake to make sure the village survives. The richest people are usually in charge. At least they were back in the day, 1,000 years ago. You're not solving a Byzantine general problem with proof of stake. All you're doing is rewarding early adopters. There's nothing revolutionary there. It's just tax collecting.
Well, like it's all about where the ledger is stored. If everyone's storing the ledger, like what if you have a proof of stake system where everyone has 1% of it? Like nobody has, you know, an unequal share, or, you know, a share that's greater than 50% of someone else's. Like would that kind of figure description of a blockchain, or you still think it's kind of
I don't think that's possible.
Okay, well, I might pose the argument, okay, so a proof of stake blockchain is probably more of a permission blockchain as opposed to the proof of work, which is permissionless. Like you have to get coin from someone in order to participate in the network and, you know, hash on the network or whatever. So at that point, it's still a blockchain. It's just, you know, maybe a more centralized version, a more controlled version, or just permission blockchain, right?
Again, to me, a permission blockchain is just a database with multiple admins.
Okay. Well, yeah.
But again, but everyone has their own definition of a blockchain. I go through this every time I'm on a panel talking about private versus public blockchains. To me, your blockchain needs proof of work. There are a few blockchains out there: Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dash. These are blockchains. Now, granted, Bitcoin is the only one of relevance with security, but Litecoin is a blockchain. Dash is a blockchain. Monero is a blockchain. These are blockchains because they require proof of work. I also believe that only one of them will survive, not all of them, because of for security reasons. I also have no idea what is making Steem secure, like the coin itself. Again, it's proof of stake. It's all going to go to the top people. It's like any other pyramid scheme. Sooner or later, people will get frustrated, and they're not going to be happy with that system. And I feel bad for all the people that actually went out and used their valuable Bitcoins to buy that Steem.
Well, okay, so Steemit is actually a hybrid blockchain, though. They actually have 1 in 20 blocks. It's a proof of work. So what's your opinion, I guess, on these hybrid chains? Because they kind of exist in various ways. Sometimes they're 2 chains, as we see with Vericoin.
Again, right, it's all those little things, right? They have one meaningless part that's decentralized, and now they get to claim their project is decentralized. They have one meaningless block out of 20 that is proof of work, just so they can claim that they're a hybrid proof of work system, right? It's completely silly, right? Like for example, if it's like if 1% of your ancestry is black, now you go around claiming you're a black person. It's kind of what they're doing.
Okay, well, what about, okay, so Decred is a pretty good example, I think, of a modern hybrid, because the proof of stake is actually very different than what we've seen, and there are former Bitcoin suite developers that are doing this, but it's I think it's every other block is, you know, proof of work, so it's 50-50, and then the proof of stake block.
If it's 50-50, then it's a true hybrid. I don't know how useful it is. I don't know how good it is. But at least if you're 50-50, you have the right to claim that you're a hybrid system.
Okay.
Or if it's, you know, or if it's not 50-50, if it's probabilistic, right? Like it could be 5 blocks in a row of proof of stake and then 3 blocks, like a coin flip, right? As long as over a long period of time, it's about 50-50. They don't have to be, you know, alternating. If you have one of those systems, then yeah, you can claim that you're a hybrid. But don't give me the bullshit that you're a hybrid when 1 out of 21 blocks is a proof of work and the rest are proof of stake going to the early adopters. Also, don't claim you're a proof of work hybrid when for the first 3 months when no one heard of you, you were proof of work and then you became proof of stake for everybody else. You know, that's silly. At least Ethereum kept their proof of work going for a year plus before they decide to go to proof of stake. I guess they can kind of claim hybrid, but once they go proof of stake for a longer period of time than they were proof of work, I don't think they deserve to call themselves a hybrid anymore.
But okay, so proof of work is a very good method of distribution. So I know quite a few proof of stake coins that distributed their coins initially by being proof of work and then switched to proof of stake because they maybe found it was more efficient or for various reasons. So you're saying that like
there's sorry, there's two reasons. I only see two reasons to go proof of stake. One, you want the early adopters, including yourself, to get perpetually rich. And two, you are a socialist that thinks that, you know, you're gonna kill the world by with mining, right? Those are the only two reasons, in my opinion.
Okay, excuse everyone at home. My mouse, I think, just stopped working and it's stuck on me. So sorry, Tone. But so
right.
I don't understand why. Okay, after Ethereum is proof of stake before it's for a period longer than it's been proof of work. After that point, it doesn't fit your definition of blockchain anymore. I find that kind of
right. It doesn't fit my no. The moment it goes 100% proof of stake, it no longer fits my definition of a blockchain. But I will give them I won't complain about them calling it a hybrid until the proof of stake lasted longer than proof of work.
Okay. So at that point, I wouldn't even call it a hybrid though, because it was pure proof of work, and then it went to pure proof of stake. So now it's not fitting my definition of hybrid.
I don't even know. I mean, we're making these definitions up on the fly anyway, so who really cares?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, Tone. It's like it's opinion. Like that's kind of, and I think that's maybe why you get a lot of disagreements or people giving you, the gears, is because
maybe. I mean, I go with the first time the word blockchain ever appeared in the core code of Bitcoin. I've tweeted it out. Satoshi clearly states in that sentence the words proof of work. When the first time he ever mentioned blockchain, the words proof of work is in that sentence. So to me, a blockchain needs proof of work, and that's the reason why it needs blocks. I think a proof of stake system can get around the block problem.
Okay. Well, let's take this to another direction. Okay, so Paul Stork, another guy who's very much in the pro-Bitcoin camp, he wrote an article about use all altcoins are test nets. Do you kind of share that same sentiment, where like all these are basically just test beds for Bitcoin technology that's going to come out down the line? Like there's going to be, Rootstock is going to replace Ethereum. So at that point, Ethereum is just a test net. Do you kind of share that sentiment?
Yeah, well, I've been calling Ethereum testnet to some of the Ethereum developers that I run into over the years, and I called it a testnet. I even said it. I'm gonna love to see this Bitcoin testnet act during the fork, but I see some of them as testnets. Something like Monero that is doing real science in trying to solve the fungibility problem. I see that as a true testnet. Something like Ethereum, I see the hard fork as being a testnet, but I see Ethereum itself as a complete scam in order for a few people to get very rich on the crowd sale that they had.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess you read the cliff notes of the meeting that went on like a week ago between mine.
No.
They talked about Ethereum fork a lot there because they said they really learned a lot from it. So yeah, they definitely, I think a lot of people share that sentiment. It's like, now we understand we can't fork Bitcoin willy-nilly. We're going to be dealing with 2 Bitcoins if we do.
No, but that should have been obvious. Like I keep telling people, I have a video from a year ago that explained what happens when 20% or less of true believers don't want to go with a fork. Your coin will split into 2. This was obvious to me over a year ago, and I have a whole video on it. But I guess to some people it's not obvious. So thank you, Ethereum, for proving it to us that one guy can write an article and all of a sudden you fork into 2 coins.
Yeah, well, and it's pretty crazy how many like notable and prominent Bitcoin figures were in the fork camp, and now they definitely learned the lesson. Like you have guys who are running mainstream exchanges who are just like, oh yeah, I bet you 1 Bitcoin we can fork and there won't be an issue. It's like, okay, don't say that. So not everyone will listen to you, Tone. Not everyone can hear you. But if you're in the room with these guys, I can see why maybe after a while they might want to, send you home. You said you got kicked out, I guess, at the Scaling Bitcoin conference, maybe for that reason. But no, I think the testnet argument is kind of strange. Like, well, me being an investor and maybe a trader on some level too, definitely on some level, there's definitely value here. Like, these guys are, like you said, Monero, they're proving science. Like, there are computer science projects going on right now in the space, and whether they're an app or if they're a whole new chain or they're a whole new business, like, this is innovation, and this innovation has value. So to say, dumb it down to a test.
But you really, but you have to do your research on the launch of the coin. If the launch of the coin was specifically designed for people to get rich, to me, it's a scam. And even if real science happens later, it doesn't matter. It started off as a scam. And that's how I see Ethereum, and that's how I see Steemit. And more recently, I was always a defender of Dash until I learned that that launch was also scammy. So even though Dash might be working on something like science, the way it launched was scammy. So I'm not a fan of it anymore, just because of the way it launched.
Yeah, like, there's definitely projects in the space, and the launch is a really good way to kind of look at it. Like, that's why I've been doing more and more block talks on these projects, because I find having the guy on camera and like drilling him with questions like, hey, do you have an escrow? No, I don't think we need an escrow. And they're like, okay, so you guys control the funds. Oh yeah, we're spending them on PR. It's great. Like, okay, that's a bad sign. Like, you're advertising your ICO. Like, so that's why, like, I do these block talks. It's to help people with their research. So I hope you can understand, like, the service I'm trying to do for people with these altcoins, because it's
no, I do, but the problem is, a lot of these guys that are launching these things, they know they're scamming. And if you start asking them tough questions, you're not going to get them on your show. That's the problem.
I've had two so far that kind of blew up, but I don't know. Yeah, you're kind of right. Like, some people might avoid it, and that's why, like, I'm developing relationships with exchange owners, because I'm like, okay, I told Bill from Bittrex, I'm like, yo, if you're having guys on listed, send them my way. I'd love to interview them, because like I felt really bad when I turned down. It was Edon. There was this project that was doing an ICO on Bittrex, and they were soliciting donations in the Bitcoin Talk forum. Some guy sent them 200 Bitcoin to their address because the Bittrex escrow addresses weren't live yet, so they lost 200 Bitcoins. Like, as soon as that Bitcoin cleared, they disappeared. They didn't even care about the Bitcoin they were getting from Bittrex at that point. So that's why I'm like, okay, if I had interviewed these guys, maybe I would have prevented this. Maybe I would have stopped people from buying, because if it got to the next stage, they would have had a bunch of free Bitcoin after Bittrex signed it over to them. So yeah, like, you need to do your due diligence in the space, and maybe that's why once there's a bit of a price history, you can kind of get a better gauge on what's going on, if there's actually proper market support, if there's real investors, if there's VC funding behind it. So there is a lot of research to be done in this space, and yeah, like, if you're wanting to invest in this space, you've got to be like on the ball. You can't just be throwing your money at everything. But you're in the camp of just like, hold Bitcoin. That's all you need to do, right?
Yeah, hold Bitcoin. And look, if you want to hold some of these other coins, that's fine. But I mean, it's the pump and dumps, right? It's you doing other people's work to get other people rich because they scammed the creation of the coin. Look, I mean, Charlie Lee launched Litecoin very, very fairly. It was a legit blockchain. He wanted to do something new. He wanted to do something different, and he launched it. I don't know what his future is. I don't know what's going to happen in the regulatory space. I've always been concerned that if Bitcoin is declared illegal by the European Union and by the United States, what happens to core developers? What happens to other known Bitcoin users? People like us that are making content, we're probably going to be safe. But what happens to Charlie Lee that created a coin, right? I mean, can they come after him for creating a competing currency to the US dollar? That's what happened with Liberty Reserve, with the Liberty dollar.
Yeah, and I think,
you know,
there's going to be, that argument's going to come up one day, probably very soon. But if, governments start, going blockchain currency, well, maybe then it's like, well, you know what, like it was open source software, we created a token. If people decide to value it, that's their prerogative. We didn't tell them that it had any value. So maybe at that point they can say, we didn't create a currency, we created something that was digitally scarce. And someone decided to value it and treat it as currency. We didn't market it as currency or something. Maybe that's the argument they'll use. But I think there's so many projects in the space that I think you got to dig deeper than the Bitcoin talk forum to really understand how fair they are. Like, okay, let's look at one of my favorites, Jumbucks. Okay, so I don't know if you're familiar with there's an IRC chat room back in 2014 when Dogecoin was going crazy. This one developer said, I'm going to launch a coin for this chat room. It's going to be called Coin Markets Coin. And it's going to have, we're going to have mining in 2 weeks. So everyone get your miners ready, learn how to set up. And then the first, I think it was 1,000 blocks had no reward, just so everyone could start, getting their miners up and registering the difficulty and everything. And then mining started. So that's like a very fair launch. And then, after a while, then the proof of work ended and then it switched to proof of stake. So then you had the open market and everything. And for a long time, and even still today, there's still a very fair distribution. I don't think anyone thinks anyone got Jumbucks, which is what it's now called, unfairly, because everyone had the opportunity as long as, they were in the heat of the moment in the 2014 days. So to say that they have it unfairly because they were in that moment, because they're early adopters, it gets a little, I guess, frustrating to hear that from you, Tone. If early adopters aren't allowed to benefit, then what's the incentive to be first? That's the competitiveness of the human nature, right?
Well, true, but it's not just, you're right. That one seems a little more fair, but it's also early adopters. Again, the coin needs to be spread wider. And they weren't pitching this coin like Steemit is pitching their coin, right? And you got to look at the backbone. The white paper is talking about you're going to run currency off of Reddit users and blog posts. That's just ridiculous. They're selling you nonsense.
Well, and that's where I had to explain to you, okay, Steam Power isn't really a separate currency. It's just it's staking Steam. I don't understand.
No, that's fine. No, you're right. You're right. It is. It's staking Steam. That's fine. It's
but
just
why did they talk about it in the white paper that way? Because that just confuses everyone who's in the Bitcoin space. Oh, maybe it's simpler for someone new to the space, but you're confusing everyone who's familiar with the space, and then you got to have flow charts and all this crap. If you just talk about it in the terms that it is, then that we're all familiar with it, then people not only learn about Steam, then they also learn about this entire other ecosystem. So yeah, I think their white paper is confusing as fuck, and that's why I decided to use the currency to understand it more. But even still, there's I'm still trying to understand how Steam Bucks works, or Steam dollars, which from the best I can tell, it's a token that has a corresponding sell order that's by an autonomous market bot. So that's essentially, it's an IOU for $1 worth of Steam on an order block. That's the only way I can understand. And I'm working on doing an explanation video the way I understand Steam and Steam dollars and Steam Power, but I know I'm going to get corrected on something because it's too damn confusing. Anyway,
I agree with you. I've been trying to break it down in my Twitter, but I have a lot more work to do on that. And once I'm done, I'm gonna just write a nice long article putting it all together. And it's even harder for me because I'm not a Steem user. So I'm just trying to decipher it all in theory, not even in practice.
Well, one of the top questions was, when are you going to do an introduce yourself post? You like that?
It'll never happen.
No, you choose not to.
It'll never happen. I've already, no, because the amount of hate comment I'm going to get for selling out is going to be unbelievable. So it's not worth it at this point.
Okay, no, it's good. That means your integrity is worth more than any Steem dollars ever could be.
I don't know, man. It's coming close, man. I've already seen how much thousands of dollars people have made on Steemit from my content. So it's, man, it's integrity is expensive, and very expensive.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll see if I can find a Bitcoin address. I think I saw one on Liberty.com. I'll send you 33% of the Bitcoin that I sold. And you don't have to say you agreed to it or anything, but you know what? At that point, you control it, and you're welcome to do with it.
Yeah, you know what? It's so funny. This is how I get to claim plausible deniability, right? So it's I have a donation address that I change every now and then, and when people donate to my blog, I have no idea who does it or where it comes from. So I have complete plausible deniability where it's coming from.
Oh, well, that's good. You're definitely planning ahead. So we're kind of getting to the end of the hour here. Maybe we can get a little bit of opinion on Bitcoin. And I'm surprised my mouse just randomly stopped working. This computer's 9 years old, so maybe I'll have to use some Steem dollars to buy a new MacBook. But I'll do the best with my phone here to maybe have you comment on like what the current Bitcoin situation is. I mean, like we're kind of floating at the end of this little. Where are we here? We're kind of
what's your time scale? What's your time scale? What each of those bars? Each of those candlesticks, how big are they?
I'm on the 1 hour.
Are you on the 1 hour? Can you make it on a 1 day?
Yeah. I think that tells me right there you're more of an investor because you know how to look at the larger time frame to really see the trend. So what we do for Bitcoin price predictions is we say, what's the Bitcoin price going to be in a week's time from when we do the show? So what's it going to be next Tuesday at 8 p.m.?
Wait, so is this an hour? Is this a daily
candles? Daily candles, and it's currently at 584.
I mean, this is telling me that we're going lower.
I kind of have to agree with you.
It's been a while since. Yeah, hold it like that for a second. Yeah, I see the longer term moving average. The shorter term moving average is below the longer term moving average. They're both trending down. I don't even remember that spike down. Oh yeah, there was another spike down a few days ago. That was the other hack. And yeah, it looks to me like we're gonna test not the super low. I can't really see the numbers, but what's the price at the bottom? Not the bottom of the wick, but the bottom of the candle, the big red candle. What is the closing date?
It looks like it's about 4 or 540, maybe 545.
Yeah, I think we're gonna go back to 550 before we go back up.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think I have to agree with you there because even looking at the alt market, which I think is a really good indicator for looking at Bitcoin, like let's look at the Factum project. Okay, so you might actually like the Factum project because, okay, I'm not even sure if it's proof of work.
I do not, but go on.
Okay, I'm not sure. I forget if it's proof of work, proof of stake. But it's basically factoids are used to incentivize the servers that store documents, and then it outsources encryption of these documents to the Bitcoin hash rate. So it's basically taking all these massive documents using a Merkle tree and going into one transaction and then putting that into the Bitcoin blockchain. And that's what factoids they're doing. And they just did a Series A funding round with Bank to the Future today. So their price is skyrocketing. And I've noticed for a long time now that their movements correspond to the Bitcoin market. They lead the Bitcoin market more often than not. When they've had their first like crazy ramp up from 10 cents to $1, that's when we had the first breakdown after we had a $500 Bitcoin. And then they spiked up crazy again, and we had another like dip down in Bitcoin, like I think within the same day. So now we have a spike growing already on Factum, and I think we're gonna see price trending down to correspond with that. So you know what, hedge your Bitcoin and some alts. That's my advice. So you're saying
I wouldn't go that far, but
saying
on the correlation there. But yeah, I think that I think we'll have a little. I think it'll be a little rougher road before we go back up. I think miners are going to feel a little bit of pain with a low price, and then when no one expects, we're going to shoot up over 1,000.
yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think probably in the November time again, when we see like the U.S. elections, that might be a pretty good time to see a new high.
Oh yeah, no. I think the U.S. elections will go a long way into helping Bitcoin.
Yeah, because that's the libertarian vote, isn't it, or the non-participation vote? It's like you don't want to be.
It depends. I voted for Gary Johnson last year. This year, it's going to be a little trickier.
So you said
Not
540.
last election.
You said 540 for the price in a week's time, right? Or you said even a little lower?
Yeah, probably like 540, 550 in about a week. Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna need a definite
But
number
I'm usually
here.
completely. Oh yeah, definite number. Let's split the middle. 545 in a week.
Okay, I'm gonna go a little more bear. I'm gonna say 520. I'm gonna get the bottom of that green candle right beside the bottom of the wick there. I think that's about 520. So hopefully I'm more right, being a tad more bear, but I gave you a little bit of breathing room there.
All right. Well, I hope you're writing it down. Yeah, I hope you're writing it down because I'm not going to remember.
No, I'll tweet it out. You'll be tagged. Don't worry. Actually, I'm kind of behind on some of the tweets for the show, but you'll see a bunch of the ones. And these are actually fairly accurate prediction markets. Like you'll see there's kind of groupings of people's guesses when we have big audiences, and we correspond pretty well to that pricing and the grouping. So it's really interesting. So since my computer is not letting me use my mouse, I have no idea how I'm going to end this broadcast. I might just control quit everything, but it's probably going to keep going. So this has been a fantastic chat, Tone. I hope to chat with you again. It's nice to have someone with some contrarian views, but also very well-structured opinions.
Yeah, no, it's thanks for having me on. My first time on the show. It just got a little dark because I turned my outdoor lights off, and time to go inside my little cabin here.
Well, you enjoy the Olympics, and everyone at home, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next 1,000 blocks. And I'm sorry if the show keeps going after we quit out of it, but yeah, I'll do my best to trim it when I figure out what's going on with my computer. All right, Tone? Yeah, see you in the next 1,000 blocks. Peace.
Yep. All right, thanks, man.
That works.